You got this, and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but it's not limited to, Jeffrey Platt. What's poppin', baby? How you doing?
Hello, gentlemen. Good to be back. Different spot.
Look at
Get
you.
Next to the tortoise.
Yeah,
this is
in
nice.
the tortoise corner.
Comfortable in these chairs, huh?
Yeah, it's nice
cool.
over here.
Yeah, thank
That's
y'all
That's
for
why I
having
show
me.
up all the time.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
chair.
Thank you for coming, Jeff.
Thank you
it's a
guys for
pleasure
having me.
No, thank you for coming, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right,
no,
you're welcome.
thank you.
No, thank you guys. I'd like to thank Pip, who always barks at me when I come in. And
You're the only
I guess,
person.
Burke, I'm the only one.
You're the only one. And I have to tell you, this might be dating me a little bit, but did you ever watch that show on PBS where it was this like girl in this gigantic lounge chair, like reading a book?
Reading Rainbow.
No, it wasn't Reading Rainbow, but it was one of those shows. That's what you're giving right now.
He's calling you small. He's calling you
Nah.
small.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
big chair.
It's a big shoes
So,
to fill.
Conrad, what? You don't have faith in the show today, or what?
Yeah, it's not special.
Yeah.
Oh, I fucked up.
Oh, did you not say?
You just
I
said
didn't
well,
say
another
switch up.
episode, not a special episode.
I
I don't
didn't
know.
say that. Yeah, I got fucked up in my words. I knew I said something wrong.
I just
was
thought
like,
maybe you
"Ooh,
thought maybe,
something's
you know,
wrong."
without
Landon.
Landon here, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
going to be
not
that
special.
special.
Yeah.
It's not special.
Well,
That
I
mental-
think Jeff can make up for it.
That mental
No,
health thing did
no,
not go well.
Nope, you can't.
Take it more
Oh
the chair,
my
I
God.
guess.
What's happening?
I just saw an image of Godwin's leg.
Oh, and oh.
Don't look good?
Is it a
Jesus.
Kevin
Like
Ware situation?
snapped.
Yeah, I don't know. He was laying face down on the ground.
It was dislocated.
and one foot was pointing into the ground as it should be, and the other
Yeah.
one was the exact opposite direction.
I don't think he broke
Jesus.
anything.
What did he dislocate?
His ankle.
Oh,
Yeah. That's going to be a few games out.
yeah. That's
And then-
good.
First ballot Hall of Famer Mike Evans also.
It's not even a
They
conversation.
who was
Tom or Troy Aikman.
No. In pregame, Ryan Clark goes. He literally called him first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yes, let's
Like,
go!
Let's go.
Oh,
Love
get
the
wrecked,
air.
Burke.
Get
Love
wrecked
the
my
air.
ass. I'm gonna make so much money off of this.
You're just an idiot.
Platt, what's your opinion of the notion of a first ballot Hall of Famer, like throwing that label around?
I don't know. You guys would have to tell me because, like, Basketball Hall of Fame, it just feels like everybody gets in. You know,
Yeah.
if you average 15 and 10 and you won a silver medal for Spain like 14 years ago, like, you just get into the Basketball Hall of Fame. I feel like Football Hall of Fame, it is a
It's
bit more
hard to get
difficult
in on
to
the
get
first
in.
ballot in
Yeah.
football. It's hard, yeah.
But if you were to look at a guy's numbers like a Mike Evans, probably puts together a compelling case versus
Well,
former
listen,
first ballot wide
listen, let me
receiver.
tell you
Listen,
something.
he's got to be at least in the conversation.
Okay, let me tell you something. Berkey has gone on a fucking crusade over the past two weeks of finding every receiver that has higher numbers than Mike Evans. That's
No,
not
I
in the Hall
didn't
of
have
Fame.
to go
Or
on
not
any sort
first-
of crusade.
You did.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. The NFL's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You seem to be an avid sports fan. How many wide receivers in the history of the NFL would you guess have been first ballot Hall of Famers?
Probably a couple every decade, so probably like 9 to 10.
7.
Okay.
There have been 7. By comparison to any other position, this is right up there with like centers. Like they just don't exist.
How many wide receivers who have 130 touchdowns or more weren't first ballot Hall of Famers?
Why do you say that Mike Evans doesn't have 130 touchdowns?
He has 100. He's probably going to end his career with at least 130.
Didn't we just look this up yesterday?
He had his 100 yesterday.
He had his 100
He literally got
yesterday.
his 100th yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I don't know.
I just no. I'm not like, you know,
Well,
saying one way or the other. I'm just
The answer is some.
I don't know. What's the record? Jerry Rice has the record.
We're gonna
Jerry
find
Rice,
out
yeah.
right
with
now. don't
100
worry.
and what?
A lot.
It's
100 and a lot.
100 and a lot. It's not 200. I don't think. Maybe like one. I don't know. 80. Sounds about right.
I really don't. Here, NFL receiving touchdown leaders. Jerry Rice, number 1 with 197. So you're right. It's not 200. It's not quite 200.
I knew it wasn't 200.
Number 2 is Randy Moss, 156.
Wow, that drops off pretty quick. Huh?
Okay, so those 2 first ballot
Yeah,
guys.
for sure.
Number 3, not first ballot. Number 4, not first
who
ballot.
are
Number
those?
5,
Who are
not
the
first
people?
ballot. Terrell Owens, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison.
Chris
All-
Carter wasn't a first ballot?
No.
Wow.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah, so that's
Well,
Berkey's
Chris
argument
Carter's
is
not a
how
first-
hard it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you just immediately get into the second tier, which is number 3 all time in touchdowns. Terrell Owens, who is by every measurement one of the greatest wide receivers of all time.
Okay, so you do
ballot
think
Hall
there's
of
a
Famer.
chance, right, for Mike Evans? Or like, well, if you had to put a percentage on it, what would you say?
I think it's less than 50. I mean, I bet.
Obviously, you think it's less than 50. I know that.
Yeah, I
That's
took
obvious.
I
That's-
took even money that he won't be a first
right,
ballot
yeah.
Hall of Famer.
But
It's-
do you think it's between 25?
I think
and 40?
I think where Larry Fitzgerald gets in matters.
Yeah.
If Larry Fitzgerald's a first ballot Hall of Famer, I think it's much closer
How many touchdowns did he have?
Well, there's
he is 6th all time with 121.
yes,
121.
and there's only 2 receivers that have 130 touchdowns receiving and are not in the Hall of Fame. And him and Antonio Gates.
Yeah.
Wait.
I mean,
Oh, right, but
we all know that Mike
They're
Evans is
not
going
in
to
the
the Hall of Fame. We
yeah,
just
but
don't
Fitz
know.
will be in the
Right.
Hall of Fame.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Fitz
I'm just
will
saying.
Nobody's questioning whether or not.
So will
he'll-
Gates.
Right,
I was
yeah, of
answering
course.
Lamanna's question.
Yeah.
He asked that earlier. How many wide
No,
receivers?
no. He
no.
asked how many of them weren't first
First
ballot.
ballot. Yeah.
And the answer is all of them.
Right. First ballot. That's because that's the whole thing.
That's the debate.
There's
Like, what are
nobody
we talking about?
there's nobody here that thinks Mike Evans is not going to make the Hall. We're just like, is he going to make it on the first ballot or not? And I think it depends on how the rest of his career shapes out. If he ends up staying healthy, which he's not right now, but he stays healthy, he ends up getting 150 touchdowns, and he continues on this path of 1,000 yards every season, like.
And just what year he retires,
And
right?
what-
and what class he's kind of
That
among
all-
to
yeah,
have the
of course, that
potential
has-
to jump
that
in.
definitely has something
How
to do
many
with
make
it,
the
too.
Football Hall of Fame every year?
I think it's a max of 8.
Said max of 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is where this actually stems from. It has nothing. This has nothing to do with the Rice. Okay, nothing to do with Mike Evans.
The Jerry Rice.
This is all because Conrad is convinced that Eli Manning is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Guy won fucking 2 Super Bowls against Tom Brady. I don't care what you did at any other time.
Nick Foles is
Listen,
halfway there to being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
That's right.
Yes, he is. No, honestly,
Nick Foles
if you
started
think
in the
about
league
it,
for 3 seasons.
if you think about it, Eli just beat the GOAT twice. He got his team there, and he beat the GOAT twice. He's just there. And by the
And
way,
that's going to get him into the Hall of Fame.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Listen.
But no, I think it'll get him in the
Yeah, he's a
I
Manning.
think he'll get there. I think
he'll get there too. But I think we can all
all right.
of us that are reasonable understand that he's not getting in on his first attempt.
All right, so you say Chris Carter, one of the top receivers, right?
Yeah.
All times.
Yeah.
Mike Evans already doubles his stats. He's had fucking 7 career 1K yards.
Yep.
Bit of a
6,
different game
6.
now, though.
It is true.
Quite
it
a
is.
bit different.
Yeah.
But Mike
Also-
Evans been doing this
also-
for 10 right now.
Also, did
10
not
plus.
double his stats.
Not double, but
Well, then-
I'm just mean from he has 6 years of 1K yards. Evans has 10 already.
What are the
He's
total
9.
yards?
9. It's gonna be 10 this year.
Maybe if he
Nah.
comes back.
He'll get it.
Who knows?
He's a
But
good
like,
He'll come back.
you
Iron Man.
You argue in a very strange manner.
I've had a couple of these with Connie.
It's just like the most random plucking of an apple from
It's
a
close
tree
enough to
type
double.
of thing, where it's like it's not the thing that he's saying at all. Like it's not even close to double, not even remotely.
When you say
it's
double the stats, you
30%
think he has
more.
double the touchdowns, double the yardage,
Right.
double
No,
Some of the receptions.
No, I'm just talking about one thing.
one specific.
I'm talking about one specific thing.
Doesn't
He's
really
had
matter
more
that much.
1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
Like yes,
It just shows longevity and that he's just a GOAT.
Yeah. He's the
just the
goat.
GOAT.
Yeah, fuck that Jerry Rice guy, man. You
I
know?
mean, obviously
He
Jerry
might be the
Rice
GOAT.
number one, but yeah, he just shows a lot of longevity.
What if he gets
of doing
190?
every
This is a
single
great
year.
redirect from
He has
the
130
Eli Manning
touchdowns.
talk, by the way.
Eli Manning is going in the
moved off
first
of that
ballot.
one real fast. Very well done.
I don't need to. I don't need to move off of that. When do we
Very
find
well
out?
done. Well, while we're on the topic of first ballot Hall of Famers, we should probably just get Conrad's take on the women's Hall of Fame.
There we go.
Since you're just throwing around ballots, there are.
I can't tell you who I voted for.
We can probably guess.
Yeah, I'm sure we could guess. Friend of the show. There are 8 nominees this year, most of which I know who they are. Admittedly, there are 2 that I don't. But Jeff? Do you know what the qualifying parameters are? Age amongst other things.
Female, you have to be female.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm not sure. No, I'm trying to look.
Okay. Let me see if I can pull something up. But anyway, the nominees are Chrissy B, Liv Boeree, Jean Riders, who I'm actually not familiar. Oh, sorry, that's her Twitter handle. It's Jean David, who I'm actually not very familiar with. Jamie Kerstetter, Kara Scott, Rebecca McAdam, who I'm also not familiar with, Annette Oberstead, and Jen Shahade.
Good list.
Very good list. I think Schwan made a good point that all of them very likely will get in
At some point.
anyway.
How many are they letting in?
I think one.
Just one?
I'm not sure.
I think they do a couple.
It's different.
Get the ball rolling.
It's different than the
Well, they ask you to
Different
vote
than the
on
poker.
3.
than the Poker Hall of Fame. Wait, they ask you what?
To vote on 3.
Yeah, but that's always the case.
Is this a public vote?
Part of
Yeah,
it.
part of it.
Okay.
It says public nominations for the 2024 Women Poker Hall of Fame.
And how
Women
long-
in Poker Hall of Fame.
Sorry, I'm asking you questions I don't know if you know the answer to, but do we know how long the vote is open for?
I can tell you.
Until October 30th, as far as public voting is concerned.
Okay.
I'm not
Right.
sure when the media and industry
So you got about a
voting
week. You got
takes
about a
place.
week to get your vote in if you want to vote.
And just point of clarification, Gene David was head of responsible gaming for Poker Stars, active in a lot of legalization of
pretty-
online poker efforts
pretty
in the
massive.
U.S.,
Yeah.
which is pretty huge. And Rebecca at the forefront of many women's initiatives in poker, according to Poker News. I recognize the name, but started women-only boot camps, created the first female insights community. Has also been a big part of Poker Stars charity events.
So I'm looking at the past class. This isn't every year. It looks as though it was every year from 2008 to 2012, and then it started going every other year. So 14, 16, 18, 22. And it looks like the class of 22 was 4 women were inducted. It was Angelica Hale, Jennifer Tilley, Vanessa Selps, and Terry King. So I would imagine that is probably what the limit is each year. Let me look back to 18, see. So 18 was just 2. Shout out to Maria Ho. She got in that year. And 16 was also just 2. So looks like 2 to 4 would probably be the number. Maybe they take an average of the votes with like the panel. Because I think for the Poker Hall of Fame, it's the previous hall members that ultimately decide, right?
Right.
There's no public aspect to it.
The public has a say in some nominations, right? I don't know the specifics of that process, but they do ask the public for nominations. But yeah, as far as the actual vote, it's just Poker Hall of Fame members.
So I think all of these ladies are first timers. Who are the first ballots? Who gets in on the first try here, Conrad?
Kara Scott, and again, all well-deserved nominations for sure. Kara Scott is my first ballot Women in Poker Hall of Fame shoo-in. Just an iconic presence on so many broadcasts for the last, it's probably 18 to 20 years since we first saw her on TV. So to have that level of consistency and success, not just in broadcasting, but also in playing when she took that seriously in the late 2000. She's been an ambassador for online sites, and her anchoring, reporting, interviewing is just at a whole nother level. So she's most certainly my first ballot.
Love everybody on there, but
Yeah.
you know, I might have voted for one person 3 times. I'm not gonna say any names or anything, but
could all
I
say the
might
name.
have voted for one person 3 times.
Who also will most certainly get into the Women in Poker Hall of Fame at some point, just at this
Absolutely.
specific point. And she would probably agree with me, knowing the person that you may or may not have voted for. I will take Kara to get in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm reading it. So the public vote counts as one member of the voting panel.
Okay.
So effectively, like the collective public equals one member. And the final ceremony will take place December 11th. So we'll know then. I like that you're able to choose. I thought I would have a clear choice here, and I really don't.
It's tough.
It's very difficult because I think just on their playing careers alone, nobody. I shouldn't say nobody stands out. Obviously,
Chrissy
Chrissy and
definitely.
Liv stand out as they made it to the highest levels. But from a longevity standpoint and just like a sheer resume standpoint, I mean, this is a really impressive list. And it's really difficult. Like my immediate knee-jerk reaction was like, oh, Annette. Has to be Annette. But like, does it? Annette was sick
Sure.
in her, you know, she was like one of the youngest to really burst onto the scene. I believe she was actually the youngest to ever win
A bracelet.
the World Series main event. She won WSOP Europe
that's right,
when she
yeah.
turned 19, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of faded very quickly. Like she like left the scene kind of with Black Friday. So I don't know. I agree. I think there's a really strong argument for all of them involved. Obviously, Kara has like such a huge footprint on the industry, well beyond playing.
Yeah,
I mean,
good
just
way to put it.
yeah, you just go all the way back to the origins, and you can kind of see her every step of the way in some sort of capacity as a public face to the industry.
I mean, is she the first to do bust out interviews?
That's a good question.
Obviously, like people have talked
Maybe.
to the production crew,
Right.
but as far as, you know, a sideline reporter of sorts, especially during the main, like to get them on camera right after they bust in a one-on-one setting, she might be the first. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what
I just don't know who else.
what was on
what
TV,
else.
right? Because it wasn't nobody did bust out interviews during the World Series, like early broadcasts.
Right.
And was she affiliated with WPT immediately, like right out of the gate, or was it Shauna Hyatt? No, she was Poker After Dark, right?
But Shauna Hyatt also did WPT, just at different times.
Yeah, it's really hard
But did
for me.
WPT even do one-on-one
No.
bust out? They would do the celebration, you know,
Yeah.
for the winner.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because like the bust out interview almost became kind of a byproduct of poker news being
true.
being a thing,
Sure.
right? Like media actually being on site to capture things in real time. I think people forget that for the better part of a decade, we watched poker in replay.
Right.
Fully edited.
Right.
Right.
This is like, I don't think the bust out interviews came till it was a live stream.
Yeah, I
you
think
could just
that's
grab
right.
somebody, talk to them live.
Well, I
while
think
something's going on in the
I think it was an offshoot of media. Like way before live streaming took place, we had things like Poker News doing on-site reporting.
That is true, right?
Maybe I don't know when video actually became. It's so crazy, man. 20 years we went from like written stories all the way to like vlogs. Like we just blew right through blogging and got into vlogging within a matter of like months.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would imagine that part of what ushered that in was shows like Poker After Dark and High Stakes Poker, where they were constantly kind of like pulling the players aside from the table here and there just to kind of get their thoughts on what was going on, get a little one-on-one time. Very, very different than a bust out interview, of course. No one's happy in that moment, you know.
Right.
Maybe a winner's interview, I guess, is a little bit more happy. I'm scouring this site to figure out how many they're going to take this year, because if it's 4 of the 6, I think it's a much more daunting task to figure out who doesn't get in.
It? Yeah.
Maybe not, though. Maybe that's easier than trying to pick just one from this group of 6. But anyway, I do think that whatever the case may be, all 6 will eventually find their way into the hall. I'm curious to see how this voting process shakes out, and we'll be sure to follow up with it once the nominees are accepted.
Matt, and the women, Gene and Rebecca, sorry, Guapo, to cut you off. I think based on them getting nominated, there are people who know a lot more about their efforts behind the scenes than we do. So I'm assuming that those 2 are shoo-ins at some point. If not at this point, then they will be in the future. It's just easier for us to talk about the other. There are 8 total, right? Easier for us to talk about the other 6 because we're a lot more familiar with their accomplishments.
That's true. That's abundantly true. That tends to be the case the other way too. Like, prior to knowing Lee Jones pretty well, I knew of Isai, and I had an idea of like how important he was to the poker industry and stars, but like not to the degree that we kind of understand now, where it's pretty egregious that year in and year out he's going to struggle to get into the hall and that's kind of the same thing here, right? It's like it's recency bias. You see a list of players who have all done remarkable things within the space and have career earnings that surpass anything that you could ever imagine in your wildest dreams, and then you have a guy who wore a suit and negotiated billion-dollar deals for the better part of a decade that we never got to be privy to, that probably moved mountains to ensure that we could all even play in this space. That's kind of unsung, it's very difficult. There should probably be some level of separation. This conversation comes up every time we talk about the Hall of Fame.
But with new owners could come a new direction as far as the Poker Hall of Fame is concerned.
Is it owned by WSOP?
The Poker Hall of Fame is, yes. So when that deal is made official, GG would naturally own the Poker Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that feels problematic to me.
How so?
WSOP is only one little fraction of the entire community.
Right.
And I know for a long time the WSOP was just synonymous with professional poker. Like for a long time there was no separation, right? But that changed drastically nonetheless. With online sites coming into the fold and just the early 2000s being what they were, the WSOP is still the biggest brand in the industry, and it's not even remotely close. And they've now partnered with what is currently the biggest online brand in the industry, and they're a conglomerate. Like there's no fighting that. But the hall aspect to me becomes a little bit bothersome because it feels like you just shut out 80% of the community from ever having a snowball's chance in hell, right? It's like we look at the guys that are being nominated now. Was it Patrick that got in this year?
Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick, I said this when it happened. I think he's like one of maybe 3 remaining cash game guys, like cash game specialists, that have a shot at getting in. Roble probably gets in. Ras got in the year prior, and I guess you could kind of even like Seaver. It's really difficult to make a case for him being a cash guy. He's very revered for his WSOP accomplishments.
Isn't Oppenheimer a cash guy?
Yeah, but he got in.
Oh, he already got in. Okay.
Maybe 6-7 years ago.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
First ballot guy.
Okay.
Yeah. First ballot the whole way.
I mean, Seaver's both, right?
Yeah.
He's both, but he has such a decorated WSOP career that it doesn't matter about the other stuff.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean.
That's kind of what I meant. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm going, is that without a deeply decorated WSOP resume, I don't know that people are getting in anymore.
Like Oaken's not going to get in.
No, he's in my hall though.
There we go.
He's for sure.
He's in the hall of your heart.
He's for sure my Hall of Fame. Fucking legend of the game right there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like JRB's never getting in, right?
I don't know about that. See,
Absolute goat.
He's never been nominated. He's 55.
Yeah, but
He's not going to do anything more in poker, not publicly anyway. Like, He'll never play another public hand of poker for the rest of his career.
Is he like one of the? He has to be one of the biggest influences on high stakes in poker. Like one of them out there. Like
he's a big figure for sure.
Yeah.
He's like Sean Chacon of this generation.
I mean, Sean Chacon was kind of a flash in the pants, right? He was around for like 2 years and then you never heard of him again.
He was a big part of the high stakes poker scene in the early 2000s. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to equate the two because Sean was just like an action guy that games often would build around, and Jeremy is an action guy that literally builds games, right? But there isn't really a space cut out for the host.
I don't know if like the thing is that we don't know what poker's going to look like in 10 years, right? So like at the current moment in the state of the game, yeah, it is probably hard for a cash game player, but like in the next 10, 15 years, maybe you have these maybe shows that emerge that like highlight cash game players or like but that's and then all of a sudden people are like,
but they would have to they would have to come through the lane of GG for that to matter. At the end of the day, the way the structure for the Hall of Fame is set up is that it is owned and operated by WSOP, and former Hall of Famers are the ones that dictate who gets in.
Okay.
Right. So it's like, it seems impossible to ignore the WSOP resume as it stands. Right.
Mm.
Like does a guy like Polk ever get in? Probably close. And he has 3 bracelets, but he just
doesn't matter who owns it for that discussion. Like, does it matter who's running it or who's owning it?
I guess that's where I was coming from of why I said I think it's problematic that it's owned and operated by WSOP brand specifically, because they're just incentivized to boost their own brand.
Yeah.
I could see a world where like, sure, absolutely. Like if GG like just torched the WSOP brand and was like, nah, we're all in on like online cash games, then all of a sudden maybe we see like Linus getting in and Barry Sweets and a bunch of their legends or
Red Baron.
Wow, yeah, but why can't I think of who I'm trying to? Limitless. Like maybe these guys all get in, but like as it stands, they're probably all drawing dead, right? And that's a problem in and of itself. Like, how are none of the online sites just jumping at the opportunity to create an online Hall of Fame? We're getting to that point now.
Well, I mean, recently
right.
we saw that Pocket Fives, I think it was, that had all the online stats.
The mic closer.
Pocket Fives had all the online stats.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, we saw that happen recently.
Yeah, like, been wiped from existence.
That's crazy.
Huh. Well, that was a part of the merge, right? Like REA and those guys bought it for, is it pokerstaking.com?
Yeah.
Pokerstake? Yeah.
Pokerstake.com. Yeah, they bought that site out, and with it, I assume all of the archives and the data, and it's wiped, right? Like, I don't know if they plan on creating something out of it, but it does seem like an opportunity, right? Like stars, they probably want to get back in the fold. Why not create an online Hall of Fame? Why not? Now would be the best time to do it. We're about 20 years into this sample, have the ability to still like kind of draw upon the old guard to usher in the
first person you would put in the online Hall of Fame?
Guy Liberté.
Yeah, he made everybody rich.
He was a legend.
He made everybody rich.
Tom Dwan?
No. I think Durr was a
Patrick
later.
Antonius?
I think Durr was a later wave. I think you could go Antonius, Ivy.
Would you go with? Are you thinking more cash online? Or are you thinking tournaments online?
You guys are bugging.
You have to remember, tournaments weren't really a thing until. I mean, they were, but like not to
not big.
Not like they are now.
You guys are bugging. You guys are missing the clear first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh my God! If he says Eli Manning,
he's gonna say Isildur.
Donkfish or whatever the guy that was.
Tough fish. Fuck me to tears.
Oh my God! Yes, get him in.
First round Hall of Famer.
Well,
get him in there.
He's an absolute legend. Absolute. That would actually, you know what? It would take me doing a little bit of digging because I'm a little disconnected from my youth. But that would be a fun episode to go back and come up with like.
Create your own online.
I thought you were going to say try to get Tough Fish on the show.
No. He's dead for sure.
I don't know that.
There's no way that man has made it. His stress levels were through the roof. Like, the guy smokes a box of cigarettes a day for sure.
Tough Fish, if you're out there, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Shout out to my G, but like no shot. But no, like maybe curate like 20 Hall of Famers from the 2003-2009 era.
Oh yes.
Honestly, first guy who should be in
this either.
is the guy who created the party poker software.
At least I'm not going to do that. Sure pisses me off, though. God damn it, I'm convinced the bastards are pushing me around. I'm just convinced that the son of a bitches are pushing me around.
How far ahead of his time was he? Just doing a play and explain.
Yeah.
2004 play and explain.
Right.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that. That called me with anything when I don't have any. Doesn't that happen when I actually have a hand?
Unreal. That's so good. Fuck me to tears.
That's so good.
Oh man, it really is good. Yeah, that's maybe we'll get a panel together.
Yeah.
That's the better question. Who's the panel? If we had a panel of 5 people to vote in Hall of Famers from online from 2003 to 2009. I mean, the panel probably just answered your question, right? Like whoever's on the panel
Is in.
they're in.
They're in, yeah.
Oh, I know.
Chris
No.
Mormon's got to be in there.
I know who
right?
the panel would be. I know exactly who the panel would be. It would be
Brent Hanks.
2 people, and then you should add like some third, some third party that was around and dialed in, but not particularly like a player of sorts, some sort of media.
Lee Jones.
Yeah, maybe Lee Jones.
Yeah.
He might be a good intermediary, but backs and sheets.
Backs and Sheets, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Just let backs and sheets
Yeah.
choose.
Yeah, they know who all the
They
best
fucking know
players are.
everybody. For sure.
Yeah.
Without question. All right. Since we're talking about WSOP, let's move into this. Well, actually, let's celebrate a little bit before we get into the darker side of things. Big shout out to Matt Hunt. Recently, we were talking about a bounty course that he put out, and he just went and lived up to his own little expectations here that he set with the course.
There are like 22 players in this tournament.
Yeah, and he won all of it.
He busted every single person.
45
That
players.
is a nice jump from first to second.
Yeah, so
that.
there were 43 total entries. The total prize pool was 12.5K. It looks like probably didn't overlay. He won
about half of it.
$5,600.
It was 12,900.
Oh, okay, so just over the guarantee.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
45% of the prize pool went straight to Hunt. No big deal.
amazing.
And then he
Now
went on.
Now we're cooking.
He went on to also win the OC number 87. I don't think this one was actually a bounty tournament, so this one doesn't apply so much to his course, but he shipped this one for 14.6. Nice little week for Hunt. In spite of the fact that those 2 wins actually drove him off of Twitter for good. Legitimately, I mean, we're laughing about it, but he legitimately deleted his account.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He deleted his account?
He's done fucking with you guys.
Do you blame him? I don't
No,
blame
I
him one
don't.
bit.
I
Done
don't,
fucking
I
with
don't.
y'all.
Berkey said, welcome to my world.
I said, man, these guys are just replying to a Twitter thread calling out a hand that you played poorly. Imagine if you had a guy dedicating 30 minutes of slapstick comedy to it once a week. So sorry, let me rephrase. Solve for Why account posted his initial results for the PKO, basically saying like, he backs up what he says in his recent bounty hunting course. Hunt demonstrates how to basically extract value from
Go
these
to
tournaments.
softforwhy.io and sign up.
Yeah, sign up for that one. And Kevin,
Evo.
what is it? Gone Banana on Gone Bananas on the site. He said, "Is this by flatting 10-7 off out of the small blind?" Now you won't be able to read Hunt's replies because they no longer
gone.
exist. But basically, it turned into a back and forth of them calling each other punters. Which, whatever, man. There's ego battles all over the place on the internet. That's no big deal. Then somebody asked for the hand history, and Kevin said 30 effective. I opened He said hijacked. Hunt said low jack. I don't think it really matters. But they're playing a 6-max tournament, so he opens. He opens early position with king deuce suited. Hunt flats small blind with 10-7 off. Comes 10-10-7 rainbow. Hunt checks. Kevin bet third pot. Hunt check raises 3x. Kevin peels. Turn is an offsuit 8. Hunt checks. Kevin bluffs for quarter pot. Hunt calls. And then the river's a king. Hunt checks. Kevin jams for 70% pot. And Hunt snaps with the boat. Which then this led to him. So like the back and forth was basically like Hunt saying like, you know, you didn't play the hand very well. Kevin said, I admit I'm a punter, but I'm not trying to show coaching. And then somebody said, are you implying that Hunt is a break-even losing player because he tries to, whatever. The whole point of this is I got in here at some point. I can't seem to find it, but there was a point where the thread was starting to catch traction. And I text the group chat and I go, I will promise you with 100% certainty that Darren Rabinowitz will find his way into this thread. And it's just like it's like a beacon for shit regs to come out of the woodwork and just like be like, oh, you played a hand bad too. You stink. No, you stink. And it's like this never ending, I don't know, like compare and contrast of like who can find the minutia of where somebody's punting off a quarter of a big blind as if it fucking matters. And basically like I replied to it and said, imagine pulling a single spot where a guy is maybe losing cents on the dollar and trying to disqualify his entire coaching career based off of an error like this. And, you know, Nick Marchington got in the thread too because I think he's friends with Gone Bananas and like that's fine. He ended up DMing me later saying like, you know, this is all an overreaction. But like, I get it from both points of view. Like from their side, it's just like, how dare you criticize me? But like from Hunt's side, it's like, you know, I played the game, I won, I coached the game. Clearly, I know what I'm talking about. Like, why do I have to defend everything that I do just because I am capable of coaching players who currently aren't winning or whatever? And like Marchie and I went back and forth and I was just like, yeah, you know, like I would just be a little hesitant to pile on in these spots, specifically in your spot, because, you know, you're a lot more qualified of a player than anybody else in that thread. AKA like, you're not a shit reg. Don't act like one, you know? And it's like, when we zoom out and look at things, it's like, I've seen Nick post things where he's like calling down with 9 high in a cash game for like hundreds of big blinds correctly. And it's like, I do this too all the time. And I think that like, it's easy to forget that when you're viewed as a qualified source, people will just accept that and say like, oh, okay, like you had a read or, you know, whatever. But the second somebody wants to invalidate you as a qualified source, they'll point to that exact same example and say, this guy's an idiot. Don't listen to a single word that he says. He called me with queen 10 high, honey. You know, like that type of stuff. And it's a very weird landscape. Like call out culture within the game is very strange to me because nobody's without mistakes.
Yeah.
And even if they are like beyond reproach whenever it comes to strategy, who gives a shit? Maybe the guy was gambling.
I'm more on the side of who gives a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're opening the King Dewey. I'm fucking defending the small blind with the 10-7 off. Like, let's get it popping. Who gives a fuck? Like,
I mean,
if this is like what's going on, I don't know. Like, he's obviously...
I mean, the last thing I'll say on this is that I would just never throw shade. That was one of the worst post-flop played hands I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. Like, I can't believe anybody would just be like, I don't see what the problem is with your line. It's like, well, I don't fucking know. I mean, do we know anything about ranges? How is this working out? Like, okay, fine, you bet the flop. Whatever, that happens. Yeah. And then you got check raised and decided to peel with an over and a backdoor flush draw on a paired board and then bluff a straight card, get called, and then make top pair and just be like, I think he has 8-9 exactly. I'm all in.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing here? I mean, like, this is not the fight to have, in my opinion, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Hunt probably, he should have deleted his account. Through all that.
I mean,
especially, in 2 weeks, Trump might win, which he doesn't want to be on there for that either.
yeah. Well,
In other news, if you want to take down 50% of the prize pool,
That's right.
Bounty
we're
Nice.
not guaranteeing you win half the prize pool.
We're not guaranteeing
No guarantees.
financial advice, but
No guarantees, but yes.
he can put you in a position to do
Hunt's
it.
last couple of courses I've watched recently, and they're really fucking good.
Yeah, of course they
That's
are.
good.
Really fucking
He's good, and he just takes the most shit out of for someone who's like unwarranted. It's just like the guys out
Well,
there.
he's British.
catching strays,
yeah, but what does that have to do with anything?
No, I think
Right.
I think your point is very valid.
Yeah, it's just like the guys out there. He has one-on-one students. He makes great content for us. He
Makes great content for Wizard as well.
for GTO Wizard, he literally lives and breathes this game and dives into the minor details to find all the edges and then present it to people, and then he just gets shit for it, and it's just I don't get it. I never understood it.
I saw him at the Venetian a day after some of the Negreanu tweets. And it's like, I heard you suck as a coach. So yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that was whatever. Well, I don't want to reopen that can of worms, but that was not great. To say the least. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate, like particularly in Hunt shoes, like a lot of shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
So if I find myself in some sort of back and forth, he just ultimately becomes collateral damage.
Always, it's just like
very unfair.
Look at fucking Berkey, and then he's got this guy, and like it's just like, what the hell did I do? Like,
Well, the thing is that generally the people that are willing to talk the most amount of shit are the least educated in the space.
Yeah.
When it comes to like who's doing what, right? It's like
I'm surprised I haven't cut that many strays from being friends with you for this long.
I mean, you're not in the public sphere.
That's true. I mean, I'm on a podcast.
Yeah,
Ain't nobody fucking with
That's
the
about where it
torque.
ends.
Yeah, I think everybody's scared to do that.
They don't want to fuck with the tortoise.
They're not
You fuck with the
goddamn
tortoise, you
minds.
get the shell.
That's right.
Man,
good.
this is incredible. Somebody found the reference that I was talking about earlier, the girl in the giant rocking chair, and sent the screenshot. Guapo, I just sent it to you. This is Platt right now in his big comfy chair.
Spacious.
It was called Sarah's Story.
Oh man,
Just
That's a good
remarkable.
find.
Also, the guys from Blues.
All right, now let's get a shot of
The guy from Blues Clues had a big chair too, right?
No, he sat on a couch, I think.
Did he? Oh,
Yeah.
I guess it's funny.
It wasn't a big chair. It was a couch, which kind of is a big chair. If you think about it.
Same.
Big long chair.
All right, have you heard about this this shit going down with the fair play check on WSOP?
We hear there's a little grand theft going on.
Oh, nice.
You know?
It's good. Why don't one of you guys explain it?
Are you familiar at all with this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had heard rumblings of this over the last few days, I guess. Obviously Corey plays a ton in Michigan, so he's pretty tapped into that network. And I think that basically, like, I'm very hesitant to talk publicly about anything until it is made public and there are a lot of details out there. So Cherish put a tweet out, looks like this was around midnight last night. She said, I just found out that the guy I lost heads up to for a bracelet a few nights ago has been banned as of today and failed GTO fair play. Though I didn't at the time think much of his play though at the time I didn't think much of his play could be RTA. It really sucks to think that I, along with everybody else, could have been cheated. WSOP has got to do better with this shit. Apparently he was reported multiple times. The fact that money isn't also confiscated is wild when there is proof of cheating. You have to make a point of people like this, or else everybody else will think they can get away with it. There were a couple hands that were sus that I did a fair play check on and couldn't find anything, though I'm sure if he knew people were onto him, he was scrambling suits, etc., not using GTO Wiz AI and another form. I'm not really sure what that means, but hopefully action is taken and the right thing is done. And then she corrects herself and says, when I say banned, I mean his account was suspended. So
My first question, and I don't want to cut you off now.
no, go ahead.
How does someone find out that someone's account has been taken away? Like, like, is WSOP like making an announcement? How
No,
does
they
she
probably
get this?
they probably told somebody, and that somebody it just
Yeah, I think it
goes
probably
on
gets
telephone.
through the grapevine, but also like we saw this happen in the past. Was it You Are in Danger?
Something like that. The PA guy.
They disappear from the pool, so they just go many days without being on there.
Okay, so does that mean they're just speculating at this point?
I mean, when
I want to know how someone is so certain that someone got kicked off for RTA is what I'm asking.
Well, not for RTA, but it's under suspension. If you see somebody that you played cash with every day for, say,
and they're just gone?
3 years, literally every day you played
Sure.
cash with them for 3 years. You see their stats, they've played every day for 3 years.
Okay.
Now they're gone for the last
or
couple
something,
days,
yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
And they're being suspected of RTA. You
but
just come to that
my-
suspicion.
Right. My question is why are they being
Suspicion.
suspected of RTA just because they fell off the
Well,
sphere of poker?
No, because
No, there's a lot of information that's indicating that the pool thought that he was potentially cheating.
Okay.
So there's a mounting case. How flimsy or not flimsy it is to be determined because very little of it is public. I think most of it's just being shared privately through Discords and a lot of other channels. What has gone public is, in my opinion, not anything more than speculation. And that's not to say that I'm privy to all the information. Of course I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not in these private channels, and I know how these things work. It's the same thing with like when the live cheating was going on. There was a lot of details that could not be shared publicly, for fear of safety and a million other reasons. But, our confidence privately was a lot higher than what we could publicly state, I would say. And that very well could be the case here also.
there was a lot of there's just a lot of GTO fair play checks that are just being shown that are not coming.
Okay, but then that leads me to the following question of Mario Arbis put out a long thread talking about how this player was the reigning WSOP Player of the Year, recent online bracelet winner, calls him out by name, says that his account is suspended. Again, like, all of this is speculation. So I would be very cautious to say these things so confidently. Like, we can speculate that this is the case, and if you have like some sort of confirmation, then okay, you can say it with more authority. But this is where it becomes problematic to me. He posts screenshots now. This is not alleged. He posts screenshots.
I just love that graphic. Sorry.
He posts screenshots of the fair play checks. It's the next one down. Scroll down. And they aren't actually positive hits. So the first one is the Queen 10-7. This is a positive hit, but again, it's only a flop spot check, which this hand played out to the river. So I would give that minimal weight, I guess. And then the next two aren't the same spot at all. The second one is for 100 big blind cash that the timestamp doesn't actually even align with, where they're playing, an MTT at very shallow depths. So there's really no application there at all. And then the third one is the spot is not even remotely close to the same formation. So the spot looked up was low jack button, and the actual spot played was hijack small blind. And it looks like it was a 3-bet pot. So it's just like there's no positive correlation here whatsoever outside of the board texture, which means that was, very likely to be uniquely different than what's posted here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that are.
But why post these then?
Somebody just wrote "dumb as fuck." Those are used, but there's dozens of them.
Fine, then post them.
Yeah.
Because using those discredits the voice that's actually coming out against this guy.
Agreed.
Right? Like, you can't string a guy up by his toes and say that he's definitely a cheater and then post circumstantial evidence that is not corroborating that in any capacity. We're not seeing what you guys are claiming to see. Where are the actual spots that are demonstrating this? And the thing is that I think people have a misconception of like what we can do as a community when it comes to being diligent here. By all accounts, the process was handled well. It sounds as though there was an internal investigation that was prompted by the community constantly pinging them with spots that needed to be looked into. So there's no reason to go public here. If he never appears back on WSOP, if that screen name disappears forever, then publicly out him. And media sources like us and Poker News and others will pick up that story. Because if after a month he's no longer playing on WSOP.com, then we have confirmation, right? And that's as good as we're going to get. I'm not sure what you gain by taking the risk of possibly calling out an innocent person in this particular instance. And I think the same goes for Cherish. It's like just a little bit premature. You can even kind of like read in her post where it's like everything is very speculative. There isn't really any proof. She said she fair game checked a few spots and came up negative. It's like, I would be very hesitant. And look, this is coming from somebody who hastily called people out in the past based off of what I thought was a pretty confident, group of high stakes regs that had found some fair play check inconsistencies. That first iteration of fair play checks that we saw before GTO Wizard, kind of added a lot of layers to it, they were just wrought with false positives. Mm-hmm. And when we ran with that, it came with us having to backtrack, us having to apologize, and don't get me wrong, there were a couple accounts that were properly flagged during that time and did ultimately get shown to be cheating. But it's really important that we don't lose our credibility as a public voice. And I'm not even just saying like us as a platform. I'm saying collectively, people that are willing to take to Twitter and say like this person or that person is cheating. It's very important that there is cold, hard evidence behind that before you publicly scrutinize somebody.
Check. Let me ask you a question. If they were in a process of gathering information and they went to I'm just going to say an operator, and the operator doesn't respond, how do you go about that?
Then I think you could just put out the information that you've gathered publicly. Don't say that somebody is or isn't cheating. Maybe don't use the screen name or whatever, but there are certainly ways to publicly pressure these things. I just think everybody wants...
Just do it without a name.
Also, can you imagine how many messages WSOP must get from just people just saying, hey, I got cheated or this guy did this.
To be fair, that's their
they're
job.
Probably inundated with craziness.
To be fair, that's somebody's job, has to be. It just has to be somebody's job, just sniffing through those and double checking.
So what I'm saying is you can see how things can slip through the cracks. If they're getting these just over and over and over and over again.
I mean, honestly, it's the pools aren't that big. You're only going to get from a certain amount of people. You're not going to get... I know I've never sent a damn email like that. So
but you
we're
and I
not going to
also...
get that many of those, I think. I think it's something that I would get checked by somebody, a human source, whatever.
So in theory, can an operator and GTO Wizard have a conversation if they're investigating any player for suspected cheating do they have the ability to collaborate on the time and the IP address?
Okay,
so
they
do?
So my understanding, having spoken with people behind the scenes, is that Wizard has a collaborative partnership with most major online sites. Not all. I have a fair idea of the ones that they do and don't, but it's not my place to say. And with that collaborative partnership, I understand it as when fair play game checks come into question, then information can be passed between the two. So GTO Wizard's obviously collecting information on their side, which I assume includes IP address of the initial lookup or whatever. And as far as I understand it, there's a collaborative effort there. So I think the point, Pads pointed out, these positive hits don't mean anything because you could just set somebody up. And I think to some degree that's true, but they're still useful in the sense that for the public who may have suspicions of certain accounts, it can be used as a means to push that now onto the operator. Like, hey, I'm suspicious of this account, and we found a bunch of fair play checks that seem to align with him not, playing above board or whatever.
Yeah, put them on your radar.
Can you look into this?
Yeah.
And then at that point, if they have a collaborative partnership with GTO Wizard, they can gain more information and, kind of do their own investigation and figure out if this person actually is above board or not. So though it may be a bit of a smoke screen to us where, it kind of is just like, I don't know, paying lip service a little bit to the community at large because it gives you a tool or resource that allows you to kind of have false confidence one way or the other. On the back end of that, I think for most major sites, they actually are able to utilize the information in a way that is beneficial. We saw a ban of, I think it was Project Baby on Global, if I'm not mistaken. That took weeks, maybe longer. I mean, everybody's complaining about the WSOP process here, but with the Global process, it was many, many, many weeks of them being inundated with not just dozens, but like hundreds of fair. I mean, they were recording him in real time.
Yeah.
Screen sharing. Like, look, he's looking this up in real time while he's playing heads up against me.
Yeah.
Like endless receipts were being sent to Global. I was in their Discord chat during the time, and they were just getting inundated with information and what seemed to be clear evidence that their player pool was being cheated by this player, and he was still just open sitting all over the place. Eventually, they decided to investigate. They found him guilty. They banned him from the site. It took a long time and a lot of community pressure for that to actually be the case. I think at the end of the day, this just kind of brings back the original discussion of like, are we in a healthy place online? Is it a safe environment to play in? And I think the answer is mostly yes. But, unfortunately, I think that we're in a time and place where the incentives between the operator and the consumers just don't really align. And, Pat's kind of made a comment to Cherish's tweet where he said, unfortunately, though poker is booming, which I'm not positive that it's booming, but that's a discussion for a later date. He said the players have outgrown the site's abilities to make sure games are secure, and GTO Wizard is a readily available weapon that criminals can use. The pressure shouldn't be on WSOP. They won't change. It has to be on GTO Wizard. I think that's a weird stance to take, personally. I can't think of any other industry where a product or consumer service is offered and they're expected to police themselves.
You pulled up a good parallel in the car of gun manufacturers. Like it's right on point because like
a manufacturer putting a safety on a gun is similar to GTO Wizard putting the fair play check on their site. Right? It's like, we'll do some things. We're willing to help, but like we're not going to take our product out of people's hands.
Yeah, it's to the extreme, but it's really like it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that the parallel here is that the operators themselves are the governing bodies, right? So the way we have a government that looks over its people and says like, hey, stop shooting each other. There are laws against this. The operators are expected to do the same. And, at the end of the day, it really is a similar complex problem, right? It's like, we obviously have a murder issue in the United States where I don't want to turn this into that. That's definitely not what this conversation is meant to be. But the point is that like clearly there's a problem there, and you have both sides shouting from the rooftops that like one is eliminate guns altogether, another one's calling for more regulation, and at the end of the day, people just keep killing each other. And I think that this is that. It's you're detracting away from the point when you start to say that GTO Wizard needs to be the one who is fixing this problem. It's like, it's not up to them to put the genie back into the bottle. And there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. If we could snap our fingers and GTO Wizard and all tools similar to that, we're just eradicated for public consumption. So in other words, they're not allowed. Yeah. Some regulator comes in and says, you're not allowed to sell your product ever again publicly. Okay, a black market would form, right? It would be just like the online poker. Like The government came in and said, you're not allowed to play here. You're not allowed to offer your service here. And they're like, okay, well, fuck you. We'll do it in the gray and black markets. Like, it will always be available. So that's not going to happen. Yeah. And if that's not going to happen, what then can we expect them to do with their product? And I know everybody's going to say put a delay on it, but I don't necessarily know how much that impacts things. I'm very torn on this one because I was very pro delay, like super pro delay. I thought it was the most obvious thing in the world for these software companies to add to their product until I had to study for the heads up match.
So you actually had to use it and
imagine
quickly,
a delay
right?
every time.
Learn quickly, yeah.
So I don't think people know, but at the time it was Ruse and what now became GTO Wizard AI. It has a random delay that gets triggered.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you look up a certain amount of spots, like consistently in a row, it will start to execute a randomly triggered delay for some amount of time. That alone was infuriating. I mean, like when you're trying to like, obviously I was cramming, so it was particularly bad. But when you're trying to cram in hundreds of spots over the course of 4 or 5 hours, and you really, I mean, I would have to like actually derail my study into something else, right? It's like I'd be playing the trainer and I would dig into a spot and then I would want to look at a comparable spot. So I would open up something similar and I would start to go down this rabbit hole and then I'd hit a delay. And it's like, okay, now I have to just like bookmark this, go all the way back to the trainer and develop a whole new spot.
How long is the delay?
Just long enough that it was obnoxious, like 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Right. I kind of think this is all irrelevant though, because if they were to put a delay, another product comes to market
that eliminates the delay.
That does not have a delay. Because greed is the ultimate factor here. And if there's something that whatever we can throw money at, whatever.
People want things quick. They want things accurate. They want, and that's what you have with GTO Wizard, right? If they eliminate that, they're just handcuffing themselves and cutting off one of their legs and letting another competitor come in.
I think that's a very fair point. For sure. I also think that again, this could be solved on the operator side. I don't know to what degree online poker can be played without time bank at this point. I haven't played more than one table in many, many, many years, but I one table the app pretty consistently at very high stakes. I'm playing, the equivalent of 200, 400.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you the last time I used my time bank. I just can't tell you the last time I was in a spot where I needed 30 seconds to make a decision.
Tabling, maybe two tabling, it's different. Like when you have 6 tables, you might need a second or two. Like you might need some time.
Okay, but like I don't want to detract. I don't want to detract from the conversation at hand. But do we even think? I mean, look. All right, this goes into a whole other conversation. So I'm going to pose the question, and we don't actually have to dig into it. But do you actually think it's healthy for the overall poker ecosystem for people to be able to play more than 2 tables at a time?
Do I think it's healthy for the? No.
Right.
Right, because you're beating up on the players a lot quicker, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're just letting good players play in mass.
Yes.
So it's like maybe that is part of the solution.
The operators would never allow that.
That's another.
Right? They don't want to
make so much.
It might be so much more money, right?
They rather keep
the picture. It might be better for.
You're saying operators. Because maybe it keeps the fish or whatever the new regulars in longer, so that the
they're doing that.
Ecosystem can thrive longer.
They're doing that by eliminating good players.
That's true too.
So when they
instead of eliminating good players, eliminate
their ability
tables.
to play it in mass.
Yeah.
I know a lot of sites do that. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of sites that limit to 4. I know WSOP at one point was limited. This was old.
10.
Like way back in the original software, I want to say it might have been like 8, maybe only 4. I don't know. But again, it was a software limitation. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't intentional.
I think Ignition. I want to say it's Ignition. I'm probably wrong, but I want to say it's Ignition that limits the tables that you can play.
Yeah, maybe. And look, like that wouldn't even necessarily solve everything either, because people could just play multiple sites at the same time.
Yeah.
But they're doing so at risk because the assumption would be that the time banks would be all but eliminated.
Yeah, but now also,
at least reduced.
Yeah, but on the flip side, think about that, what we just said. somebody's going to another site to play tournaments. Like,
But
you wanna
I mean,
leave
that's
them all
happening
on your
anyway.
sites.
Yeah, that's
but,
happening.
Yeah,
anyway.
but if you can have them collect all the rake that or the majority of the rake that they put in, you're going to want that.
Right. Yeah. I think this comes back to incentives. There just seems to be such a drastic disalignment between operators and customers, and there's also such a massive lack of transparency and understanding. Like Pad's also said, between him and the backing stable that he's a part of and everything else, he said, I haven't or any of the hundreds of people that I work with financially had a single refund from any of the big sites. So if they are working together with GTO Wizard, I guess nobody's cheating and everything is great. Agree completely. There should be more transparency and marketing even around it. Rex and Pros assume GTO Wizard's business model is to sell en masse to people to cheat and people to cheat en masse as the sites and GTO Wizard do nothing because they're getting rake. I'm 99% sure that's the consensus of the industry. I don't know, man. I take a lot of issue with this statement. It's like to say that you haven't received a refund from any of the major sites and then immediately point to GTO Wizard as being the problem is like way jumping the shark. We had a $10 million bot ring and you're saying you never got a refund from it. Somehow that's GTO Wizard's fault.
That was PLO though, right?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No. So it's just like the refunds seem to have all but disappeared. And my understanding is that in a regulated market, they may not even be at liberty to refund.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems, to be honest with you.
Right. So it's like now that's no longer a solution that we can expect. And the lack of refunds does not insinuate that nothing is being done, nor that there's no cheating taking place. It just means that we're not being made whole, which is a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
And again, one that falls on the operators.
Yeah.
Like, once again, this isn't GTO Wizard's problem, I don't think. I'm not trying to frame this as like GTO Wizard's innocent in all of this either.
No, I mean, GTO Wizard is just the vehicle. Like, there's like, the operators need to like have their house in order. They need to work on it. Like, they need to do things. I don't know. Like I said, if GTO Wizard was to put a whatchamacallit on it, like a delay on it,
Yeah.
more companies will just come and step right in. So it really doesn't matter. You can't put it on them.
I think GTO Wizard has done a nice job at collaborating with WSOP. Now, I'm going to sound like a shill, of course, because GTO Wizard sponsors a lot of the stuff we do.
Sure.
We work a lot with WSOP, of course, but it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys saw this, of the NBA telling DraftKings, FanDuel, all the sports books, okay, let's not offer props, please, on the two-way players, the guys who make the least amount of money. We're probably a bit more prone to a Jonte Porter situation from last year where there could be some shady stuff going on.
Is it only unders though?
So you can still bet the over?
I think you can still bet the over, but you can't bet the under on these players.
Okay, I thought it was both, because then a player could like just take 20 shots a game and again kind of be shady. But my point is, if the NBA told all these sportsbooks, hey, stop offering props on Steph Curry and Luka Doncic and Giannis, the sportsbooks would just say no.
Right.
I mean, there's a balance there. There's a level there. And so for GTO Wizard to be offering some collaboration between themselves and the operators, I think that speaks highly of GTO Wizard, because they don't have to do it. They don't have to put the resources towards that collaboration.
Absolutely agree. I just think more operators, or all operators, need to put their hand out and take the helping hand.
Yeah. And the operator front, like, again, to go back to the ownership changes of WSOP, it will get better on a security front. I'm not saying it's bad now or it's good now. I wouldn't know. Right. I just know that GG will have more resources invested in operations, security, etc.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I agree most with Pads, in the sense that I don't necessarily believe that. And there's no indication that that's the case. Not talking about the GTO Wizard side. I agree with everything you just said. More so talking about the operators themselves putting resources towards security.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel that way. Now, I think that Pads is being a bit inflammatory, basically saying that because nobody's received any refunds, then clearly nobody's cheating, or more so going on to say that 99% of the industry assumes that GTO Wizard's being sold in mass as a cheating device. I think both of those are actually flipped. I actually think like 1% assume that this is a cheating device or use it as a cheating device, and 99% are probably just using it as a study tool as it's intended. But more importantly, like the dialing in on this tool that allows us to study but also could potentially be used as RTA is totally overlooking the massive amounts of cheating that's taking place in much lower hanging fruit that is able to scale at a much greater pace. Bots, collusion, card sharing, stables that are set up like Ali's where, they basically have people playing the early stages in mass and then have the talented players come in and play later. Data lookup, like the accusations that were levied against like Bryn's stable and Ali's stable, where they just had data lookup, lookup databases of ICM scenarios to play final tables with, and all this other shit. It's like all of that is occurring well outside of the scope of GTO Wizard. And yes, GTO Wizard exists. It's cheap. It's easily accessible. It's web browser based. And it's only going to get bigger and better. But, so does Octopi. So does, I guess, a lot of the other ones that fell by the wayside because Wizard kind of squashed them. But there were plenty of other database lookups that had existed in the past as well. And the issue is that this isn't even close to the biggest problem that these security of the operators face, right? It's the undetectable stuff, the card sharing. It's the botting where they're getting caught, disappearing for a day or two, and then just resurfacing in mass. Yeah. It's a never-ending process, and we're not seeing refunds from any of that either, right? So we can pretend that everything is all rosy on the online front and that there's nothing for consumers to concern themselves with. And if you're a fish, it probably doesn't matter. You're losing the same way you'd be losing otherwise, right? Like these cheaters and bots are just they're mostly sucking EV from the winners. They're not unfairly taking much from the losers. The losers were losing at a comparable pace anyway. Like, sure, maybe the pools get slightly tougher, but in any event, the rec money is the rec money, and it's being exhausted at a comparable pace as it always has been, or maybe slightly faster due to the difficult, tough nature of the games. I guess the counter would be that the pools are somewhat large enough, at least in the MTT front, where maybe they're a little bit protected by other recreational money. I don't know. But the bigger point is that like your break-even regs are the ones that are dying. The small winners are the ones that are dying because they can't beat the fucking bots. They can't beat the rake. They can't beat the ever-increasing rake nonetheless. They can't beat the team of Brazilians that are all card sharing when 4 of them are at the same final table. Like, there's a big problem with online poker, and it's not one simple tool that's out there. I mean, we're just paying lip service to the thing that's most public. The things that are going on behind the scenes are so much more detrimental, and they've been taking place for 20 years, and we've had no answers. Yeah. So it's like, am I doom and gloom on online? I have been for 3 years on this podcast, and it's just not changing because I don't see an operator like GG or anybody of that sort coming in and having enough resources and enough creativity to find a solution. And that's not even a slight against them. It's just recognizing how difficult the fucking problem is. It's like, I don't know. It's going to take a lot of innovation. It's going to take creativity. There needs to be something that makes online more protected the way live is. Live cheating is far more detectable. And I know I'm saying that right off the back end of, basically a method that had gone undetected for the better part of a year. But it wasn't really scalable. You weren't going to run into a guy using a whole card cam at every table.
Yeah.
Where you may run into a bot at every table in some of these sites. Like that just, I don't know, that feels problematic. I don't want to lose sight of the bigger issue at hand, which is that online security in and of itself is like pretty flimsy.
The people say you just said that online was safe.
I said I think 99% of people are using GTO Wizard for what it's intended.
Okay.
That's not the same as
Online poker.
I'm just hoping you clarify what the comments are going to say later.
They can say whatever they want. If I've learned anything,
I saved you a response later.
Listen, if I've learned anything in being on the podcast for as long as I have, it's that people have the most selective hearing you've ever seen in your entire life. They completely miss a 5-minute conversation about something, but really drill in on one hyperbolic thing that you may have said 30 seconds thereafter. What can you do?
Gotta love it.
Let's get in the muck.
All right, we got another user submission. This was where did this one come from? As soon as you get it up on the screen,
been a while.
I think
It's
it has
Don
been
B. Doe.
Oh yeah, Don B. Doe. That's right. They're playing 5-10-25. So it's not showing up on the graphic, but the under the gun has put the 25 straddle on. So we have King Queen of Spades in middle position, and we open to 50, and it folds to the third blind / straddler, and they 3-bet to 300. We go ahead and make the call. The flop is the Ace of Diamonds, King of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds, and they lead for 300 again. We decide to call. The turn is the 6 of Clubs. They lead for 600 into 12-15, so half pot again. We call, and then the river is the 7 of Spades, and they just go all in for 1,500 into 2,400, and I don't believe they told us exactly what they did, but so we put fold because we have to finish the hand for the graphics sake.
I think if he folds, this hand is a brag, and if he calls, this hand is a punt.
Why do you think it's a punt?
I mean, I think that he should be just finding a fold on the river.
Did they mention where they felt like they were in the muck, Lamana?
Yeah, hold on. Let me pull up their submission. One sec.
I think played to the river is really good. I don't think you can fold turn.
What do you think here, Platt?
Was it a blind or a straddle?
Straddle. So 3-bet came from the straddle.
Okay.
I'm such a nit. I'm folding on the turn.
We just can't. We got outs to the nuts. We can just.
They said basically in the muck from the turn, probably in different spot. Do we think live regs are capable of over bluffing here?
Right.
Platt, are you sticking around here on the turn?
Yes. I stick around too often, just in every hand.
To be clear, yeah. I mean, to be clear, versus half pot on the turn, he doesn't need to be over bluffing for your hand to be a call.
Yeah.
He just needs to bet worse than an ace.
Right.
Some amount of the time. So if he's just betting flush draws with value,
right,
like flush draws and value hands,
yeah,
King Queen's a very clear call here, I think. Yeah, I don't think that there's much discussion here on the turn. I think flop and turn or pre-flop, flop and turn, I think are all well played. Yeah. River, I think, is where it becomes a question of, is this a pay spot or not?
What do you think?
In theory, I think it's probably indifferent. I would pay, like in practice, in a live venue facing 3/4 pot here, I would pay
certain faces.
I would pay if the 7-deuce game was on. I would pay
stand-up
2 out of 10 players that I play with regularly.
Okay. Some stand-up situations.
Yeah, and I would fold versus like 80% of the pool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Most people just don't. Here's the thing, though.
He labeled the villain as a good player for what it's worth. So
sure,
if that has anything to do, that has to be into consideration for sure.
It does. The thing is that on these triple Broadway boards, in my opinion, or in my experience, I should say, people tend to miss a lot of the obvious value hands that go for 3. So half pot, 3/4 pot shove. You could certainly have ace queen there. That's a no-brainer in my mind, and I imagine ace 10 probably mixes this line at some frequency. In my experience, a lot of people miss those hands for the bet jam.
Yeah.
You just will see the bet check with like ace queen because they want to have something to bluff catch. They want to have something to bluff catch.
So you're meaning he'd be more weighted toward bluffs and stuff like that in here?
Not necessarily.
But you're taking value hands that should have went bet jam.
Well, what I'm just basically saying is that you don't see the triple barrel here at the proper frequency.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if the triple barrel here is infrequent enough that I recognize he's not value betting thinly enough,
that leads him to be imbalanced, or
everybody will be imbalanced.
Okay.
Like if I start with the presumption that the triple barrel just does not happen at the correct frequency, then what I know is that river bet is heavily imbalanced. And now I can basically make a decision based off of how I think my opponent will lean with their imbalances. So like I said, 20% of the field I think is just drastically over bluffing here. Mm-hmm. They just have, like, they're the type that will bluff a missed flush draw on the river. They'll have 10-9 of diamonds and just rifle it off because what else would you do with 10-9 of diamonds here? And then there's this other portion that I think is like never value jamming ace queen, and maybe might even check a hand like king jack on the end, to which they're just not bluffing enough.
Right.
They won't find nearly enough bluffs. They'll never have like the 10-9 of hearts for the backdoor triple off, right? Like they'll just never have the small pocket pairs. Not, whatever the bottom of their pocket pair 3-bet range is. Let's say it's 6s or 7s. They'll just never have those for triple offs, right?
I mean, a lot of these games these players never have 10-9 here either.
That's what he said.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're just like the internet, man.
No, I just that's that part.
Lock in. So yeah, I basically think like generally this is probably a river fold, but in theory I think we're just gonna find that it's gonna be indifferent. Mm-hmm. You guys have any predictions before we jump into the sim?
I'll just put myself out there and say that the Sims agrees with me and says fold the turn.
The sim is never folding.
I'd be very
surprised. Is never folding 3 outs to the nuts.
I don't think you can
turn for half pot. It just doesn't do it. It's like
you can fold king 9. You can fold. Yeah.
Oh, king 9 for sure, because you don't have outs to the nuts, right? So it's just like I think anytime you have outs to the nuts and you're and you also have like a showdown value, you have something of a pair, and you're facing half pot.
If I'm a contrarian to the wizard every single time, I'm going to get one right eventually.
That is true. Yeah,
you'll find the low frequency spot.
I'm in agreement with you, Burke. I think it's going to be indifferent on the river just because the wizard is going to show the proper amount of bluffs that this person should have. So then
it's not just that. You're blocking some of the value. You're blocking ace king. You're blocking king jack. You're blocking ace queen. Mm-hmm. King queen is like a really powerful bluff catcher in this instance. It's probably serving you better than a hand like ace deuce.
Yeah. I think it leans fold on river heavily.
Yes.
I think
it might have a slither of call, but it leans fold on river heavily.
I think it's the exact inverse.
All right, maybe.
I think it's the opposite.
Yeah, I think it's going to lean heavy call, but will fold maybe a third of the time.
I think it's going to be right down the middle.
Smart man.
Let's run.
I'll go with Berkey and mostly call.
All right, run that shit.
Now let's see how GTO
now we know
Wizard,
how Platt got to where he's at. Not a folder.
Let's see how GTO Wizard is intended to be used.
Okay, right. So I guess let's first start with pre-flop ranges, just to give everybody an idea of what we're looking at here. So this is what the straddle 3-bet look. Oh, it's gonna do that thing again. God bless it. Why are we like? All right. I'll show you the ranges this way.
We're not going to look at that shit.
That's a better way. Okay, so this is what the 3-bet looks like from the straddle. You can see that there are small pairs in here at some frequency. Deuces and threes, basically, you can ignore, but like 4s through 7s, you can see 7s is like a pretty heavy 3-bet pre. 8s, 9s, 10s actually get to the point of almost being pure. A lot of suited aces, the wheels are heavily leaned on, but some of these junkier ones, ace 9, ace 8, ace 7 are in there as well. And then like ace queen is bottom of value.
That's wider than I thought it would be.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four kind of
Just
interesting.
because you're closing the action and
Yeah. I think this has a lot to do with the depth.
Yeah, they're pretty deep here.
You know, we're basically 500 straddles effective, so 250 big blinds, give or take. And you know, I basically just did an on second thought review yesterday, looking at big blind versus button 3-bets, and I think people miss just how aggressively you get to play from this position because they're so accustomed to just flicking it in and closing the action. But it's really critical because you are going to have value hands that need to 3-bet.
yeah.
And when
He's
you're
not opening from the button.
no, I understand that. I was using the most wide versus wide scenario.
Balance.
And like when you look at those sort of formations, the button versus big blind, and look at the big blind 3-bet, it's a very polarizing 3-bet. But man, it is a lot of garbage at low frequency. Like so many more garbage hands than anybody would ever intuitively consider.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's looking at the king 6-0 and just like rifling it in, you know, but it gets in there at a small frequency.
This spot can't touch any garbage, really. So it
Correct.
takes the middling part.
It needs to be a lot more linear in nature, right? Because you're not going to face the 4-bet quite as often because it's still a polarized spot. But you know, I guess where are we coming from here? Who is the original opener?
Under the gun 1, I think it was. So probably low jack.
Oh, am I looking at these ranges backwards?
That would make sense.
That makes sense. I'm sorry. My bad. It still holds relatively true, but the small pairs all now disappear. Right. Sorry, I was looking at these backwards. This is what the calling range looks like from the original opener.
Okay.
I didn't realize. I thought this was late position open. Sorry.
No, it was like
okay.
mid.
So it's
early mid.
Yeah. So it's early position versus the straddle. This is what the straddle 3-bet looks like. It's still relatively linear, but like Guapo kind of mentioned, it's mostly leaning on the Fantastic Four here. So we're getting a lot of the suited connectors in here up to Jack 10. The suited broadways, Queen Jack's heavily used. This is a hand that like basically hates to call. The more sims I look at, like it's just a hand that like loathes calling pre. For whatever reason, I guess it's just like relatively dominated often. And then you see that like ace queen is a very low frequency 3-bet, leaning a lot more on the suited aces instead, including like ace queen suited is where our value range kind of starts. Not much in the way of king queen, very low frequency, using the jack X broadways instead, king jack, queen jack, jack 10, a little bit of queen 10, queen 9, all this stuff. But yeah, so the garbage here is going to be a lot more linear in nature. It's going to be like some of these low frequency offsuit aces, a lot of like the suited kings, the suited queens. These are hands that happily fold to 4-bets, but you know, can flop a fair amount of equity post. So disregard what I said about the small pocket pairs. Those won't be future street bluffs.
The queen X's they 3-bet because they get all like the ace jacks offs, the ace 10s offs to fold, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like taking that, it takes that part of their range out kind of.
It takes the offsuit variety of it out. Like a lot of the offsuit broadways are just going to be folding. You see like king queen off folds, ace jack, king jack, queen jack, these types of hands all fold. So yeah, it forces them to be much more concentrated to the suited variety. And you can see that there's like really no 9x within the caller's range except for 10, 9, 9, 8. So it does free up a lot of those like middling textures, the 10, 9 highs, the jack 10 highs, those sort of textures. It allows it to play a lot more advantageously. When we look at the post-flop strategy, you can see that it's choosing B40. I think our villain in this instance went half pot, if I'm not mistaken. Probably won't change too much though. So we'll just leave it at B40. Response here from King Queen, suited, pure call. Not really much of a discussion here. You can just see we're at a pretty massive range disadvantage here. The EV when facing bet is pretty significant. There is a check coming through here at about half frequency. So what we kind of need to understand here when we start to defend King Queen is that our opponent is starting to polarize right out of the gate. Right, because they had the option to check, and a big chunk of their range does check, which means that this is what I was saying, like that triple barrel just doesn't come through nearly enough, not only because the live player is uncomfortable jamming ace-queen for value on the end, but also because ace-queen mixes at every point throughout. So you can see it's like only 30% bet on the flop. It's probably going to be like 50-50 on the turn. And then it'll serve as a clear jam on the river because you don't really have it all that often.
Right.
So clear defend, we'll move on to the turn. Now you can see that this range does want to start to lean more into polarization, right? So you can see that it's choosing 2/3 pot instead of half. Again, I'm just going to leave it because it allows us to arrive at basically the same SPR as what happened in real time. And it doesn't really impact the defense that much. But basically, 67% pot here is now 2E. So the 6 serves as a relative brick. It has no interaction with really either range outside of ace-6 improving at a small frequency, which neither player are really going to have very much of. The backdoor hearts miss. So now there's a clear target to aim at. A lot of the floats that were like straight draw plus backdoor will now have to give up, as well as like just pure backdoors like maybe 9-8 of hearts continued at some frequency. Let's take a look. Nope, just diamonds. Okay, so that's a little out there, but 2/3 pot going to come through. You can see now what this range starts to look at. It's a lot of queen high hands, or hands that contain a queen. So as we kind of mentioned, that linear range of Queen X suited is now just rifling it. This is where we're going to pull our bluffs from. Same thing's kind of happening at the Jack X region, though those are pairs, so it's a little bit less. Queen 10, obviously the nuts. Queen Jack, pair plus draw. King Queen, sorry, Guapo. You're right, actually, it does mix.
Oh, yeah. Look at this guy.
Let's go.
Fucking go.
Mixes raise. It mixes
Where's the fucking guy?
raise and call. Raise and call.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to do you dirty like that. It actually plays a little bit of jam.
Wow.
Which I'm kind of surprised by, to be honest.
Queen's an important card. King blocks a lot.
Yeah, but a lot of the bluffs are coming from having a queen. I understand why it likes to do a lot of calling. It blocks kings, it blocks ace king, it blocks ace queen, it blocks king jack. Like all of these things are very important. I'm a little less sure as to why it jams.
Is it?
But I think it's
the
bluff.
king. I think it's the king.
Well,
because king 10.
Right, but I think that king 10 and king queen are serving as bluffs.
Yes.
Because look at everything that jams. It's a set of jacks, set of kings, ace king, ace queen, aces. And then a sliver of ace 10, a sliver of king queen, and a big chunk of king 10 suited, which just kind of tells me that these hands are the bluffs.
Yes.
So, when you're taking a hand that's a pure continue and you're bluffing with it some of the time, it means that you can basically play like pretty close to no bluffs in this spot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could play no raises, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, you could just never bluff this spot and be okay. I don't think you would lose much. When you look at the frequency of the hands that are bluffing, it's very, very, very low, with the exception being exactly king 10. And basically, this is just predicated off of, like, if you never bluff this spot, they just have so many calls. It doesn't really make that big of a difference.
It just needs somewhere to pull from because our range
is
so condensed.
Exactly, and it can't pull from like any of these regions where like you're just jamming
no blockers.
9-8 of diamonds. It's just kind of suicide. You just get called by a better flush draw and you're stone dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so river 7 of spades, mostly playing jammer check. I would say that those are pretty much the only strategies. And the jam region is going to be coming from pretty much 2-pair plus, and then kind of exactly what we thought. Well, not what we thought. I thought it would be coming from like lower down in range, like the 5-4, 6-5s. But we knew that it wasn't going to bluff busted diamonds here very often. it chooses to value jam 7-6, which may be a little bit thin.
Is it for the same reason that we don't want to, where we have to pull bluffs on the turn? Like we need to be blocking something to bluff river here?
Yes. I mean, blocking is important, but it's more so a byproduct of the bottom of our range that gets there is only diamonds, and diamonds are really bad bluffs at this point. You just want your opponent to have queen 9 of diamonds, right? So having 9-8 of diamonds is really shitty. You want your opponent to have 9-8 of diamonds when you're bluffing with 5 high.
Yeah, because I think the next bottom. Yeah, never mind. Yeah,
right?
It makes sense.
Yeah, so
it's literally only diamonds anywhere.
Yeah,
that's not
exactly. When we have 5 high, 6 high, 8 high,
even 9 high.
9 high. Yeah, it's only the diamond variety. Nothing else makes it this far, so they don't really serve that well. You can see that 10-8 now will start to get in there, with the exception of diamonds again for the same reasons. Like it just blocks folds. That's really problematic. But we do have other combinations now of 10-8 because it was a strong enough hand to call twice versus the smaller size.
And they can go off.
Right, and they can go off. Sorry.
Not call twice.
Not call twice. Bet twice. Yeah. We would never bet 8-7 of hearts on the turn. Just wouldn't make much sense. So yeah, we're mainly pulling now rather from bottom. We're pulling more so from middle, and it's almost always going to contain a pair block, a straight block, or a pair block or a straight block. It seems is absolutely necessary in this instance.
Yeah.
Drum roll, please.
So now facing jam.
Blue.
Okay. Conrad was
right down the middle, like I said.
Conrad was probably closest to right. I mean, he did say a sliver, which is a bit of an exaggeration.
I was going 25-75, so I'm a little off.
Okay, well,
pretty good though.
The big thing is that it's actually an easy one to understand. It's a pure call with king queen of diamonds and a pure fold otherwise.
Yeah.
So that seems to be relatively important. I wanted to look and see. So ace queen never actually makes it this far through this line, which is it's a pure check on the turn. Okay, so maybe the live pool doesn't have it all that wrong. They might just check the wrong street with the ace queen. You know, they bet it too often and then just like shut it down on the river. But ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, ace 9 and the like are all pure checks on the turn. Which again leads me to kind of saying like the triple off here tends to be imbalanced a bit live. When we look at like the hands that are meant to be tripling off, you can see that hands like king jack are pure checks on the turn. That tends to not be the case live. I would imagine that hand bets at least twice, if not all 3 times.
That hand is not check on the turn ever.
Right.
Matt, when you get a second, can you please go back to Under the Gun and explain intuitively why it makes sense that king queen of spades is doing what it's doing versus king queen of diamonds?
Oh, on river with the call?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that the reason why king queen of diamonds is a pure call is because your opponent's never bluffing with either of those cards in their hand. So when we go back and we look at what they're jamming with, you can see that they're bluffing with like some queen X, right? So queen 8 is going to be of hearts. That's going to be the selected bluff.
So never the diamond combo.
Queen 6 also going to be of hearts. Queen jack. So this is going to be, well, there's no combos of queen jack of diamonds, right? So that's clear. When you look at like the king queen that they're bluffing, there's a little bit of king of diamonds.
Queen of diamonds.
No, only queen of diamonds. Yeah, it's only queen of diamonds, but probably not enough to sway the way that we choose to play our king queen suiteds. And then when you look at the king X region, it just doesn't exist, right? So they're never bluffing with a king. They would only be value jamming, which is basically king jack, king queen off. King 6 itself, when it's king 6 of diamonds, which is like the only combo that makes it there, it just shuts down. It doesn't go all in. So I think specifically having the king and queen of diamonds unlocks a lot of these bluffs that could potentially exist while also still blocking some value, right? So you still do block queen 10 of diamonds, which is pretty important because that's one of their value hands. You block a hand like kings. You still block ace king, both offsuit and suited. You do block the king jack, which is very important. So I think that ultimately it comes down to the king and the queen are good blockers in reducing value. And when they're diamonds, they're good blockers in increasing bluffs. When they're the other suits, what they gain by reducing value, they lose now by reducing bluffs. And that's really important because you can see how sensitive their bluffing region is.
Your blockers unblock their like your blockers unblock their bluffs.
Only with king, queen of diamonds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the spot is not intuitive, but it's a very clean one where we don't really have much in the way of decisions. When we call with a king, basically, just like a naked king. Wow, ironically, I said I thought you could just like fold king 9. Oh, never mind. That was on the turn.
Yeah.
You don't. It's pure.
Cool.
But you also just don't have it very often.
You only have it of diamonds.
Right.
Diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be the same reason why.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it basically pure calls river as well. Same thing with king 6.
Yeah.
Well, king 6 is 2 pairs, so that makes sense.
Changes, yeah.
Yeah, interesting spot because it does clean things up relatively quickly. I think a more interesting one would be like queens. That's a hand that I suspect Guapo would probably pure fold on the turn. I mean, we want to fold king queen. He's definitely folding queen.
To be honest with you, it's the same thing as king queen on turn. It's
no, it's not.
It's not. I mean, it's because you're not unblocking the king.
Look at the difference.
But like you're calling for the same properties and just folding on river.
No,
with different.
That's where I think you're mistaken. King queen is not calling to make a straight.
It's calling because it blocks the king and it also blocks the straight.
Correct.
And it also has 3 outs to the nuts.
The 3 outs aren't really nearly as important as you see with, I mean, I guess king 9 of diamonds is a bad example. The 3 outs are helpful, but that's the last reason why it's calling. The main reasons why it's calling is because of how much it reduces value.
Also, I'm gonna blame my environment for overfolding.
You mean
that's my cop out.
You mean under bluffing?
He's overfolding because they are under bluffing.
Right. Yeah. You are the environment in this instance. The environment isn't folding. You're folding.
Well, he's only folding because they're under bluffing.
I understand.
So he's reacting to the environment of itself, which makes him the environment.
I'm just trying to get words right, man. He said he blames the environment for underfolding or overfolding, rather.
No, he blames the environment for himself overfolding.
Oh,
there it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I knew what you were saying the whole time, Guapo.
Thanks,
I got you.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, while you are out there overfolding due to the environment, me and Platt are just going to keep flicking at the fucking.
Amen.
Call.
Keep on winning, right?
Lose.
I'll see you guys.
Eventually, they push you the pot. Eventually. If you guys have your own in the muck that you'd like to submit, head over to our Discord channel, #Discord in the chat, or at onlyfriends_pod. It's the pinned tweet. Follow the link. We have an entire community set up, as well as a forum for in the muck submissions. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about all things online poker, about how to play king queen, and about Jeff Platt sitting in a chair that might be a little bit too big for him.
You know,
it's quite.
To be
it's a little awkward. Like I wish it were either a little bigger or a little smaller at this point. I just don't know how do you sit?
Jeff, we gotta talk about something real quick. We got 1 minute.
Yeah.
Why the fuck did you bet the under on the Knicks wins for the season?
Not only that,
Smart
but
man.
I'm betting the alternate under also 50.5.
Oh, you're out of your fucking mind.
I'm adding the alt
You
wager.
realize
Happy
we're
NBA.
You realize we're gonna win the East, right?
You might win the East. I just don't think you would win in the regular season.
Oh.
I think it'll take you a while to figure it out.
All right.
That's all.
All right, touche.
That's all.
While we're paying off these bad bets, you just want to give me my money for the Steelers now?
Doesn't look great. It's 8.5, right?
Yeah.
Is our number?
Yeah.
And I'm on the -140 side, I think.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I made a case for you yesterday.
No, you didn't. No, you said they might go 9-8.
Yeah,
That's
but that's pretty close. You know, they screw up one other game.
Hey Jeff, good news. There's a chance you might get close to not losing.
Yeah, great.
And still lose.
The end of the season it says 9-8.
Kind of like the Pirates bet. You got very close to not losing that one.
Does this
and
mean
then
you're going to give
broke
him
even.
an option to buy out, man?
Yeah, you can buy out at
declined.
99%.
Yeah, I know. Any offer he would give me would be outrageously ridiculous.
Completely insulting.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
that's going to do it for us today. We're going to be joined tomorrow by Jesse Sylvia and Andrew Barber is going to be calling in. We might even have Landon back on set. Who knows? We're going to cross our fingers that the young prince makes his way back into the studio. We'll see you guys all noon Pacific tomorrow.
Later, squad.
Peace.